Blimey. Ooh, this is one out of a jam jar you got here.
Every morning, the House of Mystery contains demons, angels, elementals, magicians, wizards, apparitions, adult language, and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not enter the House of Mystery.
All right, then. On with the show.
Welcome, everyone, to the House of Mystery, the John Constantine and Friends podcast. I am Michael Flores, the host and executioner of the House of Mystery. And in the House of Mystery with me today is my bisexual bellboy. That sounds sexy, right?
Is that why you're wearing all that black leather on you?
Yes, come here, David. Take my bags.
Take my bags.
But don't go upstairs. Go to the dungeon. Wink, wink.
Do I have to wear this ball gag?
That's up to you. I want to make sure this is completely consensual. I don't want this to ever bite me in the ass in 10 years. That's an awful introduction. Can we start over? All right. Welcome, everyone, to the House of Mystery. Today, you and I, Dave, are going to be discussing and breaking down Hellblazer number 9, or I should say John Constantine Hellblazer number 9, titled The Favorite, written by, of course, Simon Spurrier, who, I'm just going to say this right now, knocked this one out the fucking park.
Oh, yeah. This particular issue is probably my favorite.
Really, Dave?
Yeah, because, I loved his take on the mermaid tale in the last one.
Oh, yeah.
I did like his opener with the hobo and the angels. But this one, dude, was perfect.
Yeah.
And he only needed one issue to do it.
Yeah.
Which was
fantastic.
Was fantastic. And not only that, his choices of imagery too were really good. I love later on I'll say what my favorite panel was.
Yeah, I know you're excited.
But dude, this one was probably one of the best Hellblazer issues put together, and you just needed one issue. Everything worked.
Everything worked. It was a one-issue story, and then of course you pair that with Matthias Bergara's art, which was fucking on point.
Oh yeah,
and then Jordi Belair as well with the colors.
And Campbell's done a fantastic job up to this point. We both agree.
Yeah, but I feel like Bergara was for whatever reason Matthias was brought on for this issue. I don't know what the reason for breaking them up, but I felt like his style worked really well with this dark fantasy vibe with the unicorn. It worked for me.
It definitely worked.
So
it's. I hate saying that Matthias did a better job than Campbell.
Dave, come on.
I really do.
Do we need to even say that? I mean, come on. One has one style, one has another.
Yeah.
Don't be an asshole, Dave. Don't make me put that ball gag on you and put you in the dungeon with
a unicorn.
Yeah.
Jesus, the unicorn in this dude just scared the shit out of me.
Because you're impure. Let's just be honest. It'll pierce
exactly.
you. Yeah.
It's impure. I'm impure. It'll trample me to death.
Yeah. You're like the Duke in this episode or in this issue. All right, so the synopsis. The British royal family has always had an interest in breeding the world's finest racehorses. When one disgraced royal cooks up a scheme to recreate the most magical of all horses, it's up to John Constantine to stop him from unleashing a bloodthirsty horror. Yeah, so Hurrier, who's Hurrier? Spurrier. David, I blame that little fuckery on you.
How do you blame me on that?
Just let me do it, okay? Spurrier went there in this issue. He's waging a little war with the royal family, let's be honest. Yeah. And not just the royal family, but the horse racing industry. He did not hold back even a little.
No.
A lot of it was, it wasn't even allusions. It was direct accusations, very strong opinions. And listen, I'm I'm of the mindset that if you're a writer and you know how to express things in a certain way and you're telling a fucking story, be as direct as you want to be. As long as you're not getting on a soapbox and pointing down at all the little people telling us how to think. That's one thing I just don't like.
Exactly, yeah.
But this is an example of a writer having an opinion and saying, listen, this is my fucking opinion. I am fucking passionate. I think horse racing is an abomination. I think the royal family is an abomination. And I'm going to put it all into one fucking story and I'm going to sell it to you guys.
And not only that, you're throwing in the whole element of, I guess you could say it's sex trafficking, what the guy was doing with all those girls.
Yeah, I guess, especially when you look at the inspiration for this character.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a story, Dave, that is timely and very relevant yet again. This is Spurrier's bag when it comes to Hellblazer.
Yeah.
And this time essentially tackling the whole Prince Andrew fiasco, as you were alluding to, as well as the recent uptick in complaints pertaining to the abusive, cruel nature of the horse racing industry. He laid it all out. There was no poetic nuance. His words were written as blunt as they could be.
Yes.
But perhaps with a topic like this, there's no room for poetic nuance. There's no room for poetic nuance. There are moments where you can truly feel Spurrier's disdain channeled through Constantine, drawing inspirations from real-world headlines and tabloids. Ultimately, Spurrier designs a story that highlights a lot of things with a very concise liberal message. And you know what? Let me erase that part. I don't want to say liberal message. How about a human message?
There you go. That's
how
better.
about a non-piece of shit message? Because if you have to be liberal to understand that animal cruelty and abusive actions towards young women of a certain age, sex trafficking, having sexual relations with a minor, if you have to be liberal, no, you have to be a person to think that's wrong.
Yes.
So let me take away the whole liberal aspect. Obviously, Spurrier didn't use names with the royal family. But come on, we all know who he's talking about.
Oh, yeah, because, like, I hate to say it, that this is where it's a little too on the nose.
Well, but again, as I said, there was no poetic nuance.
Yeah.
It was blunt, but perhaps, hey, listen, let me be blunt with this. This is something that I feel passionately about. I mean, I could be wrong, but the only one of the Queen's sons is known predominantly by the title of Duke, and that is Prince Andrew.
That's Prince Andrew.
and honestly, Dave, I think I side with Spurrier on this. I feel like you can be blunt at times, and when it comes to, and you said on the nose, and yes, I don't feel like he needed to be not on the nose. You're dealing with the royal family, which is something that everyone knows about. Everyone knows about the royal family and the conspiracy theories pertaining to a lot of things they do and their habits and their connection to the Third Reich. I mean, there are things that pop culture has just swept under the rug.
Exactly.
Because they love the royal family. It's become a mainstay here in the United States.
It's been romanticized.
Thank you, Dave. Perfect wording. It's been romanticized. Never mind the pictures of Queen Elizabeth hailing Hitler as a child. Never mind the connections to Nazi. Let's watch Netflix and show how they managed to just sweep that right. The Netflix series, The Queen, I believe. Let's
just sweep it under the rug.
Let's ignore it. Let's ignore the blatant murders. I mean, we all know. It's the worst kept secret.
Oh, yeah. And that's what I liked about the very end where John is talking about it. He says, he's not worried about the Duke.
He's worried about the Queen.
He's worried about the Queen.
Dude, I like that statement. That's a strong statement.
She gets shit done. And, like,
yeah.
he makes...
Go visit Prince Diana's gravesite for proof of that. She does get shit done.
Yeah. And, like, when he basically tells her, and goes through... The thing that I really
Princess Diana. Did I say Prince Diana?
I think you did.
Yeah, Princess
but
Diana.
What he goes through in the last couple pages, and she says, and she always struck me as a vindictive sort. Her Majesty's finest can get to whoever, whenever, wherever. That's what they told me.
Well, he also mentioned specifically car accidents.
A car accident, a car wreck,
I mean,
heart
how
attack.
did Princess Diana die? And there's been rumors for years, that she was essentially driven into that freeway wall purposely. Yeah.
And
so, dude,
he makes no bare bones.
No, he doesn't.
Like, he doesn't sugarcoat it. And I really appreciate a writer who does that. They don't sugarcoat it. This is what you want to put out there. Put it out there.
I think there's certain things that you can have a softer touch with, and then there's certain things where you're like, why should I have a softer touch?
Especially with the character that you're dealing with.
Right.
You can't have a softer touch with John Constantine.
Well,
There's
yes.
no way.
Especially when you're trying to build up this greater threat, which is old man Constantine, and the fact that he's starting all these vile scenarios in the world, and we don't really know why. In order to create threat, let's be blunt about it. Let's really drive home the point. And just for a bit of insight on what recent event we are talking about here in terms of, or in relation to Prince Andrew, last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, last year Prince Andrew suspended his public duties for the foreseeable future following intense negative reaction regarding allegations against him of sexual abuse and his connections to convicted sex offender and sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein, yes. And
claims made include that Prince Andrew had sex. I should say claims. Claims also include that Prince Andrew had sex with a 17-year-old. So these are things that are going on right now, very recently. I mean, the whole Epstein fiasco is still continuing to this very minute.
And I'm sorry, the imagery that he chose,
it's disturbing, man.
For the Duke character, is pretty much what Prince Andrew looks like.
Well, no, Andrew looks a little different, but
there's a picture.
The demeanor, his demeanor and his body language and the way he's drawn does resemble Andrew.
Well, not
his
only
facial expressions, the obvious are not.
Yes.
Or his facial
characteristics.
There we go. Yes.
The facial characteristics
are
not.
Yeah.
But like there's certain things. Like there's a picture that I just brought up that is a Prince Andrew dressed in a suit with a top hat. Sitting next to the Queen during a horse race.
I don't know why, but I love it.
And all of a sudden I flip back to my thing, and sure enough, there's Spurrier's rendition of the Duke. Top hat, suit, horse racing.
Yeah.
Huh. Who is he talking about?
It's pretty obvious.
It's
yeah.
obvious.
Yeah. So using this, I lost my train of thought. Oh, here we go. Never mind. So using this as a foundation, everything we've been talking about so far up to this point, Spurrier progresses his story exploring the darker side of humanity. And that's something we always say on our discussions, Dave, is like, hey, you can do what you want. You can be as blunt as you want. You can say whatever you want that you're passionate about. But at the end of the day, what are you actually saying besides just expressing an opinion? What does it mean? Is there benefits of story here? I like that Spurrier is giving us regular humans as our per-issue villains or baddies. And this is something that is a bit debatable. I know you and I have gone back and forth whether or not, hey, where are the demons? Where are the angels? Where are the monsters? But in retrospect, when you look back, he's giving us human beings. Humans, regular humans as our monsters. And in many ways, this is a perfect example of classic horror, or at least good horror. True horror movies are about more than simply things that go bump in the night. Horror stories have a long history of exploring deeper themes of human experience and human nature.
Yes.
So having a hobo racist, a racist ghost fueled by hate and resentment, a sexist, abusive doucher as our baddies, or narrative obstacles is very much on par with exploring the human condition and society.
Yeah. And on top of that, the thing I really do like about this issue, it brings it full circle of showing the type of world John is in. He's not in the normal DC universe. I mean, if you notice, when he starts talking about magic, right? It's not the normal DC magic. At one point, he even tells the person he's talking to that you'd have to know for sure if it wasn't some old narwhal tusk. Mm-hmm. And basically, after I read this, I began to realize all the creatures that were all created, they're not actually real magical creatures.
No.
They're not. They're created by the...
They're thought form.
They're thought form. They're tulpas.
They're what you want.
They're what you want as a human, right?
Right. That's why I love that the humans are the ones creating this.
Yeah, nothing now spells that John in the universe that he's in spells that this is the normal DC universe.
It's definitely a different world. And
it's a different world.
This is a smart way for Spurrier to bring a little more grounded grittiness to the world of John Constantine. We can get away from the big and showy and splashy. In fact, that's what they had said in the first issue of this new run here. Mm-hmm. That I've never been, breaking that fourth wall. I've never been big on the explosions or whatever he said. Yeah, I've never been big on the flashy. More about I'm all about, I'm more into the small things, and that's essentially set the stage thematically for what we'd be getting. And yes, I'm more drawn to the occult, right?
Yes,
I am. I like those elements of Hellblazer the most. But when it's all said and done, and now that we're getting close to the end of this first story arc here, issues 1 through 12, you start seeing exactly what Spurrier had in mind. And when you take a look at each of their stories of these villains so far, the hobo racist, the racist ghost, the sexist abusive doucher, and of course the Duke, they are not just racist or sexist just because. They're stories behind all of them.
Exactly.
And not to justify their actions, but to bring context to how racist inclinations form, how abuse destroys the victims from the inside out, crippling them to the point to where they are unable to even help themselves, like we saw in the previous issue.
Yeah, and that the monsters that they create are essentially,
they're true monsters of reality.
Yeah,
they're you and me. I'm not saying you and I are these types of people, but they're people that we could see every day and we don't even know it. That's the true horror aspect. That at its core is horror.
Mm-hmm. And it's not the mermaid, it's not the unicorn. While visually in the comic, those are like the horrific elements.
Right.
Nothing compares to like the evil atrocities that what created them.
Right, because exactly, because even when you look at the mermaid and the unicorn and the fake angels in the park, I mean, they were created to do these things.
Yes,
they are victims themselves. They become essentially sentient beings that were created to do horrible things. So even the monsters are victims in Spurrier's world of Constantine.
Yeah, and the connection of in this particular issue with the unicorn was so poetic because like a unicorn's supposed to be a pure being.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be a creature of beauty and purity, right? And when
it's an abomination.
It's an abomination when it comes out, and it basically this is the creation of that Duke. This is the inside what is within the Duke. It's an abomination.
Well, and that takes us to what I was trying to get us to, Dave. Thank you. I love when you're on the same wavelength. Bringing up those back issues pertaining to our villains. Now we have this story about a Duke that is essentially a mama's boy that wants his mother's approval. Spurrier paints a very clear image that he's laying a lot of these problems at the Queen's doorstep.
Yes.
She's responsible for that monster's creation, enabling, cleaning up his indiscretions. She had a big part to play in his creation. So it's all symbolic. It all flows together. All the monsters we're getting are all very much harmoniously linked in terms of theme and thought. There was a lot of smart things going in to this issue specifically. Even the point of view perspective that was utilized, that made it feel like they were intentionally trying to break the fourth wall and talk to us, the reader. And this part, I'm sure, is interpretive. I'm sure people all have their own ideas of what that meant. Spurrier has his reasons as well, and it may be different than the rest of us. That's the beautiful thing about this type of art form. It is interpretive. The reveal that John had been talking to a person sent by the Queen to kill him was one of my favorite parts of the issue. The fact that we never saw his face,
Yes.
and we never saw the face of the Queen, it conveys the idea that these people are so powerful and untouchable we can't see them. They're making backroom deals. The law can't touch them. They're untouchable. It invokes a feeling of outrage.
Yes.
That there's nothing that can truly be done.
And it's
a true injustice.
It's a true injustice, but then when you get to the quote-unquote punchline of the whole issue in the very end, it's so gratifying.
Yeah.
When John basically looks at him and says, hey, you might want to let her know that I might not know much about horses, but I've gambled against far worse folks than her. You know what they all learn? The favorite never wins. And I'm like going, out of all 9 issues we've covered so far, that's a Constantine moment.
Oh, absolutely.
That's Constantine giving the authority the finger. And that's who Constantine is. This is why he's such a glorified hero to a lot of us, the fans of Constantine, is because Constantine will always have the upper hand on the person, no matter what. Because Constantine, much like his archetype, is steps ahead of that character, like 5 to 7 steps ahead. And I have to say, like, the closest I've seen this type of Constantine was at the end of The Mermaid. The Mermaid's Tale, where we got to see Constantine basically unfold everything, right? Unfold everything in front of the fisherman's eyes. This is what you did. This is how I figured it out. That was well done for The Mermaid's Tale. Here, this felt like a fun Constantine. Constantine was the main focus. Like, from the get-go.
Literally everything revolved around him.
Everything revolved around him, which was so refreshing.
I think this is one of the most centralized Constantine stories we've had to date.
Yeah. Because, like,
today, I mean in terms of this new run, I should say.
When you look at all the other tales, it's usually Constantine having to play catch up to the villains, right? Like, he has to actually figure out, along with us, how the fisherman has been doing this. The hobo, how he's been summoning angels, even down to the one character we haven't seen since issue 1 that I really liked, which was the shaman or the drug lord that he was dealing with since issue 1.
Yeah,
how he figured out, like, he was the drug lord was steps ahead of Constantine till the very end, and then Constantine caught up to him. Here, Constantine's ahead of the game. He's ahead of the Queen. He's ahead of the Duke. He knows what's going on. And just like you said, when he's telling you this, it honestly felt like, for the first time, this is what Constantine is. This is how you tell a really good Constantine story and why we love him.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. I felt like everything really worked in this issue. I mean, every issue's great, but this might be my favorite.
Well, because, like,
so far,
not only did the story come out, but also the art. Matisse's art and their work together was fantastic. I love the choices of the panels that they did. I mean, I said in the beginning of the show, I was going to say about my favorite panel. My favorite panel by far was the very end, where they have him talking about the rings that are around Nate's fingers, and all of a sudden you realize that he took the narwhal horn that was supposed to be a unicorn horn and essentially gave it to Nate to make brass knuckles. And my favorite panel is the close-up, the action shot of Nate throwing the punch at the camera, and you see that she literally made the brass knuckles to say pure and then foul on the other side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is freaking cool, and that makes this world so dynamic. This is the style that I was waiting for John Constantine. You know, that kind of like Cockney, almost. I don't want to say Smoking Aces, but basically like that one filmmaker that me and you really like from England,
Guy Ritchie.
That Guy Ritchie style.
Yeah.
This is what it felt like, this issue. And I'm like going, this is what I was waiting for. Absolutely this is what I've been waiting since day one.
Yeah.
And honestly, dude, this
gave us a little bit of everything.
This gave us a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And I may have blown my load in the very beginning by saying this is my favorite issue.
Yeah.
But this is my favorite issue.
Yeah.
It has the best style out of all of them.
I mean, I really love the mermaid story a lot. That was my favorite up to this point. I should say issue 8 specifically, but I felt like issue 9 had everything that issue 8 had and more.
And more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on to the horse racing side of things, let's talk about this for a moment. This was another element that, as I was saying at the top of the show, Spurrier did not hold back. And this is nothing new. Horse racing has been deemed a cruel sport for a very long time. They have faced so many accusations within the recent years. Many organizations have tried to shut them down completely, but because it's such a big part of the economy in certain places, they haven't had the best of luck. But they have been forced to be more accountable because just in 2018 alone, over 500 racehorses died in the U.S.
Yeah.
For various reasons. 500. Imagine if 500 NFL players died.
That's insane.
The NFL would be done.
Yeah.
There would be no National Football League. It would be over.
It'd be over.
It'd be over. It'd be like, yeah, guys, go fuck yourselves. We are ending this. And yet, because what? It's a horse. They're athletes. They're being used in sporting matches. 500 die.
Yep.
In connection to the sport.
And not only that, it's
and no one bats an eye.
And no one bats an eye. I mean, the whole concept, and this is an actual real thing, when he brings up the whole thing about Tappet, the horse, that's an actual real thing. People have paid $300,000 just for horse semen from a particular horse.
Right. It's a thing. It's a whole thing. It's a business, and because there's so much money involved, it's a business that's really hard to fix because unfortunately the cruelty of it is what is directly connected to the money.
Yes.
I mean, the words that he wrote, that Spurrier wrote in, I believe, page 17. Here, let me pull it up real fast. He says, when he's talking about the purity of the unicorn and how the reason why it's going to kill is because it's born, it's a pure animal. But because of where it was born, can you imagine the rage? So he says, you can imagine, can't you, like an owl waking up in a bright room, like a slug being born on a pile of salt. That place, what it must have felt like to an animal like that. A temple where kings and sheiks trade bloodlines like gold. A bestiary brothel where the powerful men plan the incest and rape of helpless creatures on neat little graphs with certificates and stamps. An engine to drive the whole fucking industry of gambling, addiction, and loss. He's not holding back. Spurrier hates horse racing.
And that was for verbatim something you would hear from John Constantine. That is how Constantine would talk. And I love the fact that Spurrier was able to not make his words sound like he's saying it. No, it's John Constantine saying it. And we as fans of Constantine say, yeah, we could see Constantine saying something like this, getting behind something like this, of course. And this is the one thing that I'm really particularly happy with Spurrier and his writing is this is probably the best version of him talking through John.
Yeah. Well, because the message was strong and that message worked directly with what we know of Constantine. And another thing is that it continues, especially these last 2 issues. It's not just Constantine going through the motions. They're doing something that a lot of people lose sight of, writers of Constantine. And it's the humanity of John Constantine. The ending was one of my favorite moments. I love when a writer takes the time to show John's humanity. Not just, hey, John Constantine is an asshole. John Constantine is a cunt. He will always screw you over. He puts himself above everyone else. There's also a very human side of John Constantine. That's why he does a lot of these things, because of regret, because of remorse. And when you have a moment like him not enjoying doing something, like killing the unicorn and apologizing to it as it pierces it with a horn.
Yes.
I mean, it shows a true human, compassionate side of John Constantine. And we saw the same thing in issue 8 with the mermaid. The reason why he wanted to help her.
Yes.
He took no delight in doing any of this. It wasn't for his own selfish gain. It's like, I don't want to do this. I'm sorry I'm doing this to you. Again, with the unicorn, the monster is the victim as well.
Yeah. And that whole segment of him talking to the girl, and he's not talking to the guy. You get the sense that he's talking to the girl, and when he says, it takes a maiden to calm a monster.
Yeah. God, that's good.
Oh, dude.
That is good.
And then the following panel is just John snapping the horn, and he's surrounded with this, like, very black aura.
It's so
almost looks like a black aura surrounding him, and he basically is, like, steeling himself to do what he has to do.
It's so like Frankenstein monsters, or Frankenstein's monster.
It is.
It's like you got to put down the abomination.
And
it's kind of tragic, man, and I didn't feel good after reading this. I'm like, that's kind of fucked.
It's kind of fucked up, but I give a lot of... Spurrier knew his beats. He gave us this really heavy moment, and I'm glad we have that shot of John, this very brief moment when he walks up to the Duke and kicks him in the nuts.
Yeah.
And I'm like going, thank you.
It gives us those moments that make the distressing heavy read, especially with the mermaid issues and now this one. They're very heavy reads. This isn't light reading. This isn't something you're going to read before you go into bed.
No. I would not read this before bed.
It makes you have a win. It gives the reader a win at the end.
Yes.
And just like in issue 9, where I found myself clapping, which was silly, but like you feel yourself clapping when he throws the abusive doucher into the water and all the babies eat that guy, right? The abusive dude. And then you find yourself clapping again because you get this build-up the entire issue that the Duke is an asshole. Like, he is taking advantage of the system and getting away with it. But there's one man that will not let him get away with it. And that's John Constantine. And you do find yourself kind of clapping for a half a second there when he kicks him in the nuts.
Yeah. This, for me, I know that when we covered the mermaid thing, you were really gushing over that scene where he punches the guy in the gut to send him into the river. And for me, this felt more powerful, him kicking the Duke in the nuts, because I'm like going,
well, Dave, it's because I'm against abusive dudes, and you obviously are pro abusive guys.
I'm pure abusive guys. But to me, like, the beats in this one, especially with Matisse's art and the coloring in this one, Jordy did a fantastic job coloring this time around.
Yeah, dude. Like, he he did an amazing job. There was this
The rain, dude.
dude. Okay, that scene. Let me go to the issue or the page. Hold on. Let me go to the page. I believe it was page 19, where the unicorn goes to the young girl.
Yes.
There are vibes throughout the entire issue, but specifically this page. There's a dark fantasy vibe that is so fucking fantastic. I'm a big fan of dark fantasies, huge fan of dark fantasies.
Yeah.
And to see the way Batista did the art, it brought this vibrance. There's an ambient glow to these scenes
Yes.
that bring a more magical side to the story.
Yeah.
It conveys the idea of the supernatural in a way that I don't feel like Campbell does in every issue.
And the thing is kind
And
of like,
I don't want to compare the two, but
No.
for the purpose of that one point,
but when you
I'll do it.
when you use the comparison for the style, right? And you look at the basically how it's executed here compared to how it was executed in The Mermaid's Tale, I love the fact how it's executed here because the colors
we can see everything.
see
It's more
everything.
defined. It's clear. Yeah.
I actually get to see what the unicorn looks like, and it is grotesque, but that's the whole point.
It's so sad though.
And then you put that in a contrast with this girl in the background where she has this look of horror on her face as this abomination just puts its head in her lap because she's pure.
And she was okay with it.
And she was
She held his head.
she held its head, but you could tell that basically she was horrified by this
Well,
thing.
as it was walking towards it, but I think when she realized what it was doing,
And what it was feeling, especially when you get to the next panel where John's walking up and she is petting the unicorn on the head and you could see a tear on her cheek. It puts it so much into perspective, and that type of detail is what
we needed
we
to see it.
needed to see.
Yeah. Dude, that's a powerful page.
Oh,
Page
yeah.
17 is a powerful image.
There's a lot of really well done images, but as I said, my favorite panel is the one where you see Nat punch the camera, and it's just fantastic. I'm not going. That's the perfect closer to this issue.
Yeah, I agree. And setting aside the topical aspects and the art, the actual writing in itself, and of course I'm talking about the scripting of this book, was stellar. All the right beats were hit. The setup with Willow Tree and the wankier side of magic was amazing when he said that. The purity of unicorns, then the aspect of belief in order to kill the unicorn at the end.
Yes.
All of the required setup was there for these elements to work properly within this issue. Fantastic. Job well done.
Yeah.
I love that Spurrier makes all of our baddies so pathetic. Look at all of them. All of them pathetic. Hobo racist. Racist ghost. Abusive dude.
And the Duke.
And the Duke. Just pathetic.
But on top of that, this is the one particular issue that we got to see old man Constantine. And in this particular issue, you really do get like this sense of every single time he's on the page, there's a bit of sinister behind the blue eyes.
Yeah. Well, dude, I don't know if we've discussed just the sheer poetic side of choosing to have John Constantine as the villain as well. And the fact that John, it sounds to me like he hates the guy. He throws around the word evil very freely when he's talking about old man Constantine. And the fact that we know Constantine struggles with his own self-worth and his own mistakes haunt him. Imagine what it does knowing that the future him or a version of him is soulless and evil. This better play a big part.
Oh, dude, I'm
within the upcoming issues.
I'm so excited. I've always stated that Spurrier has a way of getting me excited for the next issue, but this particular issue, I am 100% ramped up for the face-off between Constantine and Old Man Constantine now, because we know that's happening in issue 10. Yeah. And just because of the promotion images that they've released, especially the cover of both of them squaring off against each other. So the thing that in itself, there's so many reasons why I love this issue, but that's another reason why I love the issue. It's because it ramps me up for the next issue just to see finally the culmination of the story of a better version of you.
Yep.
John,
Yep.
Old Man Constantine looking at John and saying, "Did you become a better version of me yet?"
It's all got to be. It's
That's
all
what
got
it's
to go
leading
full circle.
to.
Yeah.
That's what it's leading to. And a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Old Man Constantine must be evil.
Oh.
He must be evil." But my question is, if he's evil, right, Mike, why the hell would he put Constantine in this scenario?
Well,
if he's evil?
That's the question. And that's a question we posed, I believe, in our last issue or our last discussion on issue 8. We posed that question.
Like, I think
what's the reason for this? Why did Old Man John Constantine, go back to some other universe and bring this Constantine back into some universe and future that's not his, and tell him to be the better version of him or the better version of you? Is he trying to fix his own mistakes? Does he not want to be this evil person in hopes that this Constantine will stop him? What is going on? But I am intrigued.
I'm intrigued. And, like, I'm trying not to, but at this point, Spurrier has just did the one thing to me that I did not want, which was ramp up my expectations now.
Why don't you want expectations, Dave? Come
Because
on.
I don't want to be let down.
Spurrier won't let us down. We're not dealing with the Star Wars franchise here. We're not dealing with Last Jedi. Come on, Dave. Calm down.
That is true, but I still don't want to be let down. Because there's so many scenarios in my brain that I'm like going, this could go anywhere. We're expecting a big twist now.
As long as it's a great, satisfying ending, I'm not a stickler for my own expectations. This isn't my story. This isn't what I would write, obviously. But I'm more the mindset of, hey, listen, sell me on it. If it's something that I wasn't expecting and maybe I wouldn't have wanted if someone asked me, that's fine. But sell me on why your version is much better than the version in my head. And so far, Spurrier has managed to do that for me.
Spurrier's done it.
Yeah. All right, Dave, so let's move into our final thoughts. Do you want to kick things off?
Sure. Well, final score for this one is probably, I have to look back, but I think this is the highest scored issue that I'm going to give. I gave this one a 96. I didn't want to go full fanboy and give 100 like I usually do.
I think it's fair.
But 96, it is my favorite issue up to this point because he hits all the right beats thematically and narratively. But on top of that, the choice of the art was perfect in this one. And I feel bad because Matisse isn't the normal artist. It's Campbell. And I love Campbell. If somehow Campbell's listening to this, I love your art. I love it.
Well, hold on. Let's see. Because Campbell has done 6 issues.
6.
And I believe Batista is going to be doing 4. So it's they're splitting the duties.
They're kind of splitting it.
Right?
Yeah. But as I said, I love Campbell's art. But here, I think everything just hit every right note that there was.
Yeah, I agree. So 96?
96.
All right, I'm gonna agree with you on that. I'm gonna give this a 96%. It's a strong issue. Wait, what did I give issue 8? Do you remember?
Issue 8.
What did I give issue 8? A 94, right?
I think so. Yeah, you gave it a pretty high score, while I gave it actually a lower score.
Yeah, because you're an asshole.
Because I'm an asshole.
I will give this one a 96. I do agree with you pretty much on every point you made, Dave. The art, the writing, the symbolism, the theme, the message, Spurrier's sheer blunt instrument of a weapon that will call his words, the war he's waging on the British family and the race horse industry. I fucking bring it, man. I thought it was great. So 96. This does bring us to the end of our discussions. I want to thank everyone for listening, Thank you, David.
Thank you.